One of the most common things we see post-surgical in our Tommy John UCL repair, ulnar nerve transposition, guys, is we see a limitation in elbow flexion. And there's some things that you can do on your own to improve this. You got to be very careful if you're post-surgical and make sure that you approve this from your physician or approve it with your physical therapist. A lot of times that HEP, that home exercise program, what you're doing on your own, is going to be the limiting factor or the determining factor in how fast you recover. If you're not doing anything to reinforce what your physical therapist is doing in the clinical setting, or maybe you're not even seeing a physical therapist, you're not going to get back to where you need to be, and you're certainly not going to do it as quickly as possible. Home exercise programs are extremely important. We're going to go through flexion mobilizations that you can do. You got to make sure you're staying in a pain-free range of motion and not impinging anything. A lot of times they're uncomfortable. Make sure that you're doing things the right way and putting your joint in the right position. Some discomfort is going to be normal following surgery, but get these things checked out by your physical therapist, by your athletic trainer if you're up at school, before you just start applying things. The worst thing you can do is over apply a technique and now you're at a setback. Rarely do we see that with flexion. Flexion is a fairly safe thing to mobilize because we don't see a lot of things that limit it or a lot of things that can be potentially torn. But if you feel a ton of pressure inside the joint, you probably need to stick out in a farther range and just keep it moving a little bit. So with that said, we're going to go into it. I just got a weight bench here. I'm going to rest my arm on something. So I'm just resting my arm in this weight bench, controlling it with my other arm, and I'm just going to feel, where is it limited? You know, there's normal for me, but let's say I only got to here. So I'm going to come in, come out of it. I like moving mobilizations for the elbow. Static mobilizations are sometimes super uncomfortable, but they're also sometimes super beneficial, so you got to use both. And sometimes I integrate the two, and I'll show you that here in this video as well. So I'm just here, I'm moving it close to the end of range of motion, but not quite. And then I'm going to start touching the end. I'm just kissing the end of my range, and I'm doing it all with this hand. Then I get to the end, and I can do little bounces. And I'm just trying to bring it closer, closer in. And if that starts to irritate it, I back off a little bit. So I'm just trying to pump that end range so I can get a little farther. So there's one way that we can do it with a little oscillation. So now we're going to try to gap the elbow a little bit. I got a band here. You can use thinner or thicker. I don't need a ton of resistance. I'm going to back up here a little bit, and I'm pulling, and now I'm going to pull here. If I've got an incision, I got to be really careful. If I've had an ulnar nerve transposition, I've got to be really careful. If I'm just limited and sore, I can do it with a static hold here too. Any of these can be done with a static hold, and I don't need a ton of overpressure. It's just a little bit of pressure, especially if I'm post-surgical. It's, 3, 4, 5 pounds of pressure to reinforce what your manual therapist is doing. There, a lot of people will say that's not, how the roll and glide works with the elbow. A little bit of a congruent joint. And so what I need to do is create a little space in there, and that's why I like that band, to just create a little bit of space, a little bit of pulling, but it's not a lot. It's not a lot of pressure. It's just a couple pounds of pressure. I'm not, you guys can see how far this band comes out here, and I only had it to there. So very, very little stretch on the band. Next is a static hold here, and it's just going to be our skull crusher static hold. I can support this arm here with this other one, and I'm just letting the weight pull down into flexion, just letting it relax over time. And sometimes I don't even use a weight. Sometimes I put a half-pound cuff weight, something like that, and I can prop up against the couch if I'm sitting on the couch, pillow here, couch there, and I'm just letting the thing slowly flex. And I might hang out in this for 5-10 minutes, and then when I come out, it's going to be, real sore, and I come back, and I just do some little motions. I can do a little bit on my own if I'm at that point where I can start activating, do a little bit in my hand. Nice, safe positions. I like to come right towards the forehead. And sometimes I need to actually do the opposite. So this other hand is preventing it from going too far too fast because maybe the body weight or the weight of my own arm is just a little too much. So it's here. I just let it come down. I'll start to feel some stretching through this part of my elbow, preferably. And I just let it come. A lot of times, post-surgery we get some stretching through here. And then if I think my triceps limited, I come up a little higher. Okay, now it's more muscular in my tricep than down here. If I think, oh, it's not really involved and I want to try a little different position, I do it here. I'm starting in supination to start, and then I can try to do some pronation or some neutral grip stuff where I'm letting it come down. 2-pound weight is what I had in my hand. That's a lot. Start with extra support, move to no weight, and then add some cuff weights and stuff like that if you can tolerate. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Check out our next one. And also subscribe to our channel if you're new here so you don't miss any of our future content. We'll see you guys in the next video.